Here we are, back in D.C., the one and only Chocolate City. Oh, I love it, right in the U Street corridor, historic. You know, a few decades ago, all these buildings up and down on both sides were burned down during the Martin Luther King riots because it was a predominantly black neighborhood. Unfortunately, we tend to burn our own sometimes. But, you know, you look around now, you'd never know that this was a historically black city in a historically black neighborhood because it's been gentrified. I'm not mad at it, trying not to be mad at it, though I did grow up getting my groove on. Just across the street, I used to have to pay a crackhead named Mikey $1 just to watch my car so it wouldn't be towed by the time I came out of the club. But gentrification isn't all bad, you know, although many of the people that grew up in this neighborhood and made this city's culture so rich and so beautiful can no longer afford to live here. There is a bright side. Entrepreneurs like Andy Shallal and his world-famous Busboys and Poets restaurant are bringing soul, heart, culture, and activism right back here to Washington, D.C. Let's check it out.
Busboys and Poets is a restaurant, but it's also a community gathering space. It's a place where racial and cultural connections are consciously uplifted, where we look for differences in people and uplift them, to connect them to one another, where art, culture, and politics intentionally collide. Art and culture are the connective tissue for humanity. I'm of Arab background. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and my family came here in 1966. I was 10 years old. We call ourselves a quadruple bottom line business, in that we look at the financial bottom line, of course, but we also look at the environmental, we look at the community, and we look at our workers, because those are the things that make us who we are. A lot of businesses, they're more concerned about the free-range chicken or the grass-fed beef, and they have very little concern for whether or not the employee has a livable wage or whether or not the employee has health insurance or sick leave. We try to be stewards of all those things and make sure that we do the best possible job we can do to maintain the values that we espouse internally as well as externally. Food is the common thing that we all share as human beings. No matter what our background is, no matter what our political stand is, we all eat. And food, historically, has been a way to bring about peace. Breaking bread together is something that everybody understands and knows what that's about. And food allows you to sort of bring down your guard. When you're eating in front of somebody, you're vulnerable. You're really creating a sense of vulnerability with another human being, and you're connecting in a way that you don't otherwise. Food tends to take away blood from the brain and puts it in your stomach. And when you go in your stomach, you start having this gut feeling about things, and your gut is much more accurate in how it assesses the environment than your brain. Your brain plays tricks on you, and oftentimes will mislead you and create much more conflict. The gut never lies. The gut always tells you exactly what it is. This is an environment that we want people to just nourish not only their stomach, but also their mind and their soul. When you walk through here, you immediately notice a bookstore when you first walk in. Books tend to have a certain place in people's hearts. We have a wonderful bar. We have a great menu. We do lots of events, lots of programs here.
Welcome to Busboys and Poets!
One of the most important things we do here is poetry. It's in our name. Busboys and Poets is named after the great poet Langston Hughes, who worked as a busboy when he was recognized as a great poet here in Washington, D.C. We actually have some of the best poetry in the country that is performed here on a regular basis.
It's like being awake but your eyes closed, hearing the screams while their lives go. Stay woke was just a theme song to lean on, wordplay between mouths to ping pong, and yet I sing songs.
An open letter from Crispus Attucks to Black Lives Matter. They say I was the first nigga to get shot.
I have been folding my tongue beneath itself, bleaching my language, clenching my jaw with shackled teeth, because the moment I open my mouth, uprising spring from my saliva, my dialogue is cruddy. Sample with the muddy boots of trade and migration, battling nations in my diaphragm, so the rhythm in my diction sounds like a war cry. And despite the white Stuffed down my windpipe, I talk black. With nappy phonics, syllables that kink and twist, naughty expression that beads on my palate, so glow in this spit shine flow, Jerry curl jogging, bongo drums in my diction. This slang is semantic resistance, off with the head of the king's English. Can't you smell the riot on my breath?
I've lived in Washington most of my life, so I'm very familiar with the city, with the racial dynamics of the city. So opening a space that addresses those issues was, I think, refreshing for people, because a lot of times I think lots of businesses try to avoid controversy, try to avoid a sort of treading on thin ice on these issues. We went right into it, and we created a space that I think everyone feels at some level that they have some connection to. The reality is, this country sees color in everything, every dynamic that happens. And this city is no exception, but it tends to be probably more conscious of color, because this was Chocolate City. This was a predominantly black city. What's interesting about DC is also it doesn't belong to a state. So it's because it's like a predominantly black state. That's everybody's secret. So nobody talks about that, right? One of the reasons why we haven't had statehood is because of that, because it would be the only predominantly black state in the country. And of course we'd have 2 senators. Imagine 2 black senators. You know, no wonder people get very annoyed by it when we start talking about statehood in this city. The idea of reparations is never talked about, which seems strange. It's like, how can you enslave people for so many years and then say, okay, it's over, now you go. This society has to be able to find a way to deal with race. Not just in sort of niceties in an indirect way, but really in a very direct way. A very direct apology, a very direct, conscious effort to say, we really want to put this behind us. Until we do that, it's never going to go behind us. So one of my interests really in opening a place like this is to create a space where those types of things can be talked about. So we have a monthly series that we do that deals with race.
I feel like art is it's an inclusive language. And some of these things are really difficult to talk about.
Tolerance is done with a PowerPoint presentation, you know, but moving beyond that requires art and culture. And that's where we start becoming more human to one another, understanding each other's humanity and the connectivity we have with one another. And that's really the intention of opening this place, was to create opportunities for intersection and opportunities for dialogue amongst different people from different backgrounds. So that's been very exciting to see it working.